The rapid planning or RAP approach to developing business cases and associated plans is a concept that came to me many decades ago when we looked at stakeholders and particularly how hard it was to get stakeholders to engage with business cases. So it was a very simple concept. Why don't we get all the stakeholders in a room and start planning the project? What we found and evolved is by using the series of plug-in tools that we've been talking about in the series, you bring a structure and you bring a focus to that planning process. So in effect, if you go through all our Agile plugins, you simply use them in sequence. So a RAP process would typically be, on average, 10 to 20 people. It's been our experience. Sponsor gets up, has an introduction, and then we go through what we call the RAP rules. The most important RAP rule is no technology. You do not want people sitting in a room reading their iPhone or reading their iPad or answering emails. RAPs are about a structured conversation between people to bring out the differences that people have at the beginning in how they see the project, which is normal. What you're trying to do, if you can imagine scope like a circle, you're trying to bring those circles increasingly overlapping. And we've never had a RAP that didn't work. So you kick off, go through the rules, everyone speaks up, etc., etc. And we go through the most important rule, which is if we cannot get agreement within the room, sponsor has an override, sponsor rules. So sponsor can say, I've heard all the inputs, this is what I think the quality requirements are for me. So that's the basic rules. Everyone goes around, introduces themselves, states their position or any concerns they have about the project up front. Then you simply move through the Agile tools that we've talked about. So you kick off with sliders. If you've done the sliders before with the sponsor, which would be brilliant, you share that and get their views on where the sliders are for success. You then move on to the O3 model, which then leads you into a good clinical benefit scan process, which is step 3. You then go and have a look at the quality agreement, get that out in the open. So you've already got your sliders, you've got your scope through your O3 model, you've got a good initial benefits scan, you've also now got a quality understanding amongst the people. So you can see this workshop's getting some quite structure to it. Then you move on to risk, both project and benefit realization risk. Everyone fills in a little risk questionnaire and you bring all the answers back and discuss where the variances are and come on an agreement as to what is the project risk and the benefit realization risk. You then move to our project strategy, which we talked about in a previous series of tutorials. What is the project strategy? Are you going to break it up? What's the release plans you're going to have? What's the clumps? What's the sequence of the clumps? Have you sequenced them right to maximize client engagement or benefit realization or mitigation of risk, which we covered in the previous tutorial? Then you move on to some sort of high level work breakdown if you're actually using, for example, waterfall, or you come into a sort of epic feature partition if you're using Agile. So that's the next step. Then you move through an estimation process based around wideband Delphi, where everyone estimates everything and you then put the answers back and see where the outriders are. Or if you're using Planning Broker, the same sort of concept. Then you can actually move into, so you've got all the bases then, into some actual structuring of the sequence and actually getting people aligned to various parts that they have to do. And finally, what you look at is some costing of all of that. So by going through those steps, there's actually 10 of them in all, you'll end up with a complete business case. And we've had cases where if that RAP process was run as one full RAP, as we call it, you already had an approved business case because not only the sponsor, but all the critical stakeholders agreed with it. And I'll make a little short note here because we're going to look at variations of the RAP in the next tutorial. Make sure your change management is there. If you've got a good change management group, have them at the RAP. Also, don't forget people like your finance folks, your audit folks. They might not be critical to the actual building of the project, but they are certainly going to be critical to the whole selling of the project within the whole organization. So that's the overview of the RAP process. 10 steps. RAPs, it's hard to give an average, but on average, for RAPs, we've run them between 1 to 3 days in an extreme project 6. So we did the biggest RAP we've done recently is a 60-person RAP, but that was on a $60 million project with large numbers of benefits. It was a mission-critical project. That RAP ran for overall 6 days. We split it up, as we'll talk about in the next tutorial. But typically, you can get a RAP for a small project, say up to 5 million, done in a day. Doing it in one segment rapidly accelerates the building of the business case. But sometimes, as we'll discuss in the next tutorial, splitting it up makes a lot of sense. So it's rapid planning. Welcome to the concept.